This is Michael Carano for Real Time with IPC. And with me today we have two special guests. On my far left is Mr. Roland Valentini, who's the Chief Operating Officer of Gardien Group. Welcome, Roland.
Thank you, Mike.
And to my immediate left is Yash Sutariya, President of Saturn Flex. Welcome, Yash.
Thanks, Mike.
Well, we've got a pretty important topic to discuss today. And both of these gentlemen run companies that are very successful in our electronics industry, and they have business here in North America. So one of the things I'd like to ask them first is, and the main topic is reshoring America. Gentlemen, from both of you, starting with you, Roland, do you see any evidence of business that maybe had gone over to Asia the last few years, coming back to the United States?
What we've seen in the Asian market and the Chinese market in particular is that the market behavior locally has changed. Especially in the last couple of months, companies that we deal with that are mainly export-oriented are struggling, where the ones that are more domestically oriented are actually doing good business. That changes a little bit the way the Chinese manufacturers are treating customers from abroad. They're a lot more willing to take jobs that they haven't been willing to take on. And one of the trends that we are seeing is that they are taking actually quality RMAs claims more serious than before. In the past, it was all like, I don't really care, I don't pay. And now they're getting charged, they're taking it on, they're accepting liability and talking about it. On the other hand, the domestic market becomes a lot more attractive in terms of the growing labor costs, which is an issue if you want to export, is actually giving them a lot more to sell on the local market. So people are now in a position to buy those products that they used to make and sell out abroad and now staying in China. So I could see a trend for companies when the market is picking up to say, you know what, domestic is attractive. Certain business we don't want to do anymore with North America, and then this kind of business coming back.
So that's more of like a supply side explanation of why, if manufacturing coming back to America. So there's a lot of news stories about people coming back, and this is similar to another panel I was on this morning, but I'm almost of the school that it's more hype than actual substance. We talked about Apple this morning, and it's kind of BS. You look at, bringing $100 million worth, but how much of that is materials? How much of that is component? What's the true value add component that translates to jobs? Very minimal, right? But as far as our companies and our group have seen, work, if it's truly something that's coming back, it's more of a correction than some sort of like systemic change in the way people are doing business or thought process. I do believe, I'm a big believer in TCO, total cost of ownership, and when you do truly apply it to a certain segment of the market that went overseas, you realize it probably just shouldn't have gone there in the first place. So you could call it reshoring, could call it regionalization, you can call it whatever you want. Bottom line, it's just fixing a mistake.
Yeah, but on the other hand, what you have is a situation that a lot of the volume products, the high-tech volume products, really to come back to the US would mean an effort. That would mean substantial investments, substantial commitment.
Act of God, because there's no one's going to commit that much investment to building and tooling a facility to bring on a high runner project without serious long-term commitments from the customer side or serious financial commitments from third parties.
And that's
like
where
governments and things like that, where China's great at supporting industry, the US kind of just throws us to the dogs unless you have nice political contacts and make solar panels.
A lot of the companies in Asia, China in particular, are not following these 3 months goals. They have long-term plans. So they're investing completely different. They have different ideas about where the market is going. They have ideas about shaping the market themselves by the sheer size and the investment they take, which over here is just not present anymore.
Right, but if you also look at P&Ls from some of these Chinese firms, and then you hear from the industry, look at the size of the investments. They don't jive. They don't make enough money to invest the way they're investing. So the money's coming from somewhere. And if you want to fast forward that formula, look at Japan. Their whole stories of a few years ago was the zombie debt, the zombie companies. The companies that got loans to grow during the heyday that couldn't pay them back, so now they get new loans to pay the old loans, or at least the interest, and finally, bankers don't want to admit that it's a dud company and let's close down and liquidate, so they just keep throwing, more good money after bad. Could that be what you're ready to see, unless you could actually monetize those investments to true profits that are capable to pay back those investments?
But if you look at it from a strategic point of view, let's say like China as a country, not China as an industry, but as a country, what they've done very successfully is they made Western companies pay to bring industries into China that now are thriving not because they're exporting, they're thriving because they're domestic.
Right.
So what they do, and I completely agree with you, a lot of these companies, you have the feeling they're never going to make money. And I've yet to see a Western company that really makes money in China, right?
Right.
They seem to have different business goals in mind than the return, than the P&L. They really they seem to be other drivers that
Like taking over the world.
Taking over the world, or assuring manufacturing capabilities and manufacturing capabilities
Right.
in the country. I mean, they have a vast, growing population of engineers. They all want to work. They all want to do something, and all the low labor work is currently dying out anyway. I mean, it's unpopular. Companies like Foxconn getting pushed out of the Dongguan area because they don't really want to have them there, right? It's stinky business, it's dirty business, it's a lot of labors, and I was just reading an article on the way over that they all go for our robots. Now, if you look at robots, that could be an equalizer, right? Because if you put in investment versus labor, then the labor factor is out. That's
Right.
where you could, where North America could make a dent, but that would then depend on whether or not somebody's willing to put the money in their hand and have a believe whether, in 5 years are really going to be a big company.
Right. So the bottom line here, if we're answering the question, is investment or is the work really coming back to the U.S.? It's basically
It's window dressing.
exactly.
Okay, so all that we're reading about Reshore America and what many of these authors are talking about, it really isn't happening in your opinions?
I think
it's
it just
not
keeps
the labor.
politicians in jobs. That's
And it's
about
not
it.
the labor that's really coming back. There is work coming back. But in order to keep that work profitable, you can't replace labor with labor. You got to do it different. You got to do it smarter. So what it's going to be is, yes, there will be production here, but it will be production using the latest state of technology
And
in
it'll probably
robots.
be in different segments of the actual supply chain. Like
Yes.
if you're talking PC fab, hell no. There's just no way. The math don't work out. But if you're talking final assembly, right, that's where you can use much, more investment into the automation to combat a lower labor cost. And you're going to get the definite side benefits of increased quality, streamlined production.
And then if you are an OEM, you actually have probably even a chance to offload some of the costs to the customers. Because I can absolutely see, Western customers being willing to pay a little bit more now that they're all sensitized a little bit, they're sensible about the situation. To pay a little bit more to say, oh, it's made in the US, it's made in Germany,
Yeah,
it's
but they're not
made.
going to care where the testing machine was made, that tested the board, where the board was made. So, yeah, like you said, a lot of window dressing. But in true reality, if you're looking at board fabricators who in turn buy Roland's equipment, there's some work that's coming back, I think. And I think it's more of a correction and a reaction as opposed to a direct program or
trend.
change of or trend. And it's going to be one time. It's not going to be ever increasing over the years to finally where you're building iPods, in Detroit or wherever.
Yeah, and
guess
it's,
have
I
to
mean,
plug my hometown.
if you look at on the equipment side of things where you can make out trends, it's pretty obvious, right? Where the high technology over there is done on machines that are designed for volume. Those machines are simply not existing here in the market.
Right.
The whole processes that are behind, the whole logistics that are behind, have been abandoned in the States 10, 15 years ago.
Right. So, I mean, people always, I hear my peers say, oh, yeah, wait till it all comes back. Well, let's say it did. What are you going to do with it? Nothing. You don't have the capacity, the capabilities, the trained
whole
labor.
supply chain isn't
Nothing.
there.
It's been disappeared from the market. So just get back what's the right fit. What's the right fit for our companies right now, and then what you could grow into eventually.
All right, well, that leads me to my next question then, for both of you. You both have businesses here in the United States.
Yes.
Now, yours, Roland, is more global. But and you've invested in Saturn Flex now. Obviously, you must have a belief in that business being successful here on American soil. There must be
I
a
have
reason for it.
another problem. You know, it's in terms of like, what do you want to do with yourself? I just like to make shit. And I want to have a factory, and I want to make a keychain out of whatever we do. And so I'm stuck making circuit boards because that's my favorite thing to do. So yeah, that's why I did it. And I truly believe there's still a market. It's a $5 billion market. We're talking about, what are the largest private companies? 50, 60 million in revenue? There's still a lot of room to grow, if not through just market share. And so that's why I personally invested. I like the industry, I like what I do, and I think we're pretty good at it.
So, but you're also investing in technology, aren't you? And you're upgrading the facility that you recently purchased.
Right, but you know, more importantly, forget about the equipment, forget about the facilities, it's talent. You've gone through board houses. Who's the youngest person you've seen?
You.
Yeah, thanks. And I'm 37. That was a lot cooler statement when I was 25. But, you know, I get out of bed, things make noises that didn't used to.
Well, that's okay. You look 47.
Thank you. It's scary. It's scary, though. Where's this industry going to end up without younger people coming in to take on, you know, management positions, engineering positions, to think of that next process flow that really rocks that design and gets you great yields? Because people still design the weirdest stuff out there, and the thought process is still, if I could draw it on a screen, you should be able to build it. Yeah, there's things called physics and limitations and that they don't consider, but that's where young engineers who still have the energy come into play. And that's where, you know, with Saturn in Detroit, it was a big shop running production, and why Flex became so important to me, because that was my training ground for the next generation of management. We're bringing on people from outside the industry that have drive, intelligence, and teaching them what we're doing here. And probably in the next week or so, I'll put out some news where we'll have another place to do that. And we're going to plan for this next generation of this industry as part of our group. What everybody else is doing out there, I don't know, I don't care, because I know what we're doing is the right thing for the long term.
Okay. Roland, your final comment?
Well, I mean, we obviously have a different situation, given the fact that we are a global company with being present in 7 countries. So it's, for us, not necessarily us competing with Asia. It's more really for us know-how transfer, making sure what's going on, setting processes up that work everywhere, and then being with our customers in the individual countries and help them what their individual problems are. Meaning in the States, it's a lot about technology. It's a lot about communication. I mean, being in the States where the industry's been born, where all the rules and regulations have been made, it's still astonishing to see how little knowledge is in how do you supposed to do it. I mean, we do quality control, we do electrical testing, and we then have to argue with people that want us to testing something that is untestable. That is, you know, the physics. You want to do, you know, 20 mega ohm on a three feed trace. That's just not measurable. Where the challenges obviously in Asia are totally different. It's the understanding of quality, is understanding what the rules actually are supposed to mean. I mean, we were the ones when we installed our systems in China that actually said, you know what, we're going to use IPC as a rule, and our customers like, IPC? And we're like, yeah, but you're dealing with the US. Shouldn't you be doing that all the time? And obviously our challenge is then different. It's not competing with Asia from North America. It's helping our customers to be able to compete in the individual markets with the others. And this is where niche clients, special know-how companies are still doing good. They're still doing the exceptional business. It's more difficult when you want to do volumes.
Right.
You know, when you want to do an iPad, an iPhone, which just requires a level of technology and volume which isn't there.
Right.
Well, gentlemen, I think this has been a very lively discussion. And apparently, according to you, onshoring is a myth.
No, I just, like I said, I think it's hype to be more than what it really is.
Yeah. And it may be one politician's dream to say that because it sounds good, but in reality, you've mentioned, you cut on several very important points. You've got to have investment in this industry to make it work. And we all know that in the United States, capital formation in this country is terrible. Tax rates are artificially high on corporations and individuals. And the regulations are almost stifling, which makes it very difficult for companies in our business, whether it's process, wet chemistries, materials to make really the good investments in order to, and not go broke in order to meet these regulations. So we have that kind of that millstone around our neck, and it's probably not going to be cleared anytime soon.
In theory, everything is fixable with money, but where's the incentive for the industry to spend it?
Right. And my mom stopped giving me checks a long time ago, so I'm stuck making it.
So that allowance dried up, huh?
Yeah. It was apparently once you turn 30, you're supposed to be on your own. So.
Well, I think with that, we're going to end this interview with Roland Valentini, Chief Operating Officer of Gardien Group, Yash Sutariya, the President of Saturn Flex. This is Michael Carano for Real Time with IPC.